Hello, everybody. Welcome to Entmoot, another episode. I'm not actually sure which episode number this is. I put that in afterwards. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about men and women in society in the Western world. Now, I might end up sounding like a chauvinist or a bigot or whatever, and that's fine. I'm anonymous. I don't care. It has to be said, so I'm just going to go for it. Now, of course, like all of these little podcasts that I do, it's just my layman terms, my way of looking at things, my observations of the world. I'm not proposing to be an expert of any kind, but I'm not an idiot either, so I have a brain, and I make deductions, and that's not always a bad thing. I find that one's a little bit more free if one just allows oneself to think rather than only to think in channels that are previously accepted. It doesn't really work for me. So men and women in society in the Western world today. I have like an interesting theory on this. So let's talk about two different timelines or two different times in history. We have now, and then we have the caveman times. A lot of our DNA and our way of acting, our emotional responses, our chemistry, everything in our body is basically the same as it was. I don't know the exact number of years ago, but many years ago, 100,000, whatever, when we were cavemen. It just doesn't change that quick. We're basically the same. We're the same on a different set, on a different theatrical set. It's the same people going through the same life drama and life experiences as we've always have done. And that's what's fascinating, is how we feel it's different every time. But it just looks like it's in a way exactly the same. So if we're in the time that we were living in caves, and this I get from a book a friend gave to me. It was a book about how to pick up women. Right off the bat, I'm sure I'm judged on that. I find it interesting to read. I never used it, so still to this day, I'm not good at picking up women. That's fine with me. Anyways, this book did say something very interesting to me. It spoke about why men are so afraid to approach a group of women. You might be interested in one woman, but usually she's with a friend or a group of friends, and why is it so petrifying to approach this person and just have a conversation, introduce yourself or whatever? And the author of this book, he said that this came from the fact that in caveman times, it was the women who ruled the cave. Their social structures, the groups of women, matriarch, society-wise, ruled the cave, ruled who was in the heat, in the warmth, and who was out in the cold. When you approached as a man, you had to make a good impression right off the bat, or you were rejected from the group, and you just had to wander the desolate wilderness until you found another group that was maybe willing to give you a shot. So it was kind of life or death in a way. Now, maybe this contradicts some other ideas one has about maybe a more patriarchal society or whatever, but this was this guy's theory. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. So fast forward until today, and let's say that this is some truth to what this guy's saying, and we guys are still extremely afraid to upset these groups of women. Except these groups of women don't rule over one cave anymore. They rule over, vast swaths of social structures, i.e., social media, being thrown out of the cave, i.e., canceled. Right? So now it's the same life or death struggle to impress or pacify these, somehow make them accept you, these groups of women. You want to say the right thing, you want to do the right thing, you want to look the right way. If you don't, you step out of line, or whatever reason, somebody just, gets the ick from you for some weird reason, you're out. And nowadays it's almost like magnified because of this, the caves are huge all of a sudden. It's like global. you're globally out until you find a way in. And in a way, to me, it's kind of like a reverse witch burning, like, because you're like guilty until proven innocent in a way. If you're just looked at in a bad way, you're out. I remember I was working a night shift in Copenhagen, and there was a guy explaining to me how safe spaces work in the nightclubs nowadays. And a safe space in a nightclub in Copenhagen now means that he said a woman, I guess it could be a gay man as well, but it's a person just has to say to the bouncer that somebody's making me feel uncomfortable, or somebody is, giving me the ick or something like that, and then that person gets thrown out. There's no need for evidence when just based on the fact that this person who is somehow considered to be, I think, people would say, oh, it's because they're weak and innocent and need protection, but in reality, it's because they're powerful and feared. And this person says something, and then everybody has to make it happen. And for some strange reason, one just kind of sidesteps that whole justice idea of innocent before being proven guilty. And I just find that analogy to kind of fit in my head of what I'm seeing. I know that the story is something else. And of course, somebody who is powerful, iron fist and a velvet glove, doesn't necessarily want to be seen as powerful, wants to be seen as weak to sort of further their narrative that oh, woe is me, we need even more power because we're getting abused so horribly and all that. It just doesn't look like it when I look from what I see day-to-day basis. I can't speak of what happens behind closed doors. I'm sure it goes both ways sometimes. And this is mostly Western society. Other societies, things can be flipped completely. You look at Middle Eastern societies, you have a I would say more of a patriarchal. That looks patriarchal to me. With my eyes, that shit looks patriarchal. Like men are seriously a liability. Like, you piss them off, you're fucked. You're literally fucked. That's very clear. I do not see that in Western society. I almost never see that. I see a shitload of Karens going bananas most of the time, to be honest, and everybody is ducking and weaving to avoid being seen and to be targeted out and to be canceled. Another funny thing, or another thing that I feel is important is sort of looking towards Eastern philosophy, where this whole yin and yang thing is very important. So you have this balance between men and women, and you have, in my opinion, to be honest, a matriarchal society powering forward in the West and kind of high on their success, keep pushing. But in my mind, they're misunderstanding how dangerous it is purely for the balance of nature to push too far in the yang or in the yin. So in this case, the yin, pushing too powerful, you're just, you can't ever remove the opposite energy. You can't take it away. You can only create a shift. And when you create a shift like that, you don't know what you're unearthing from that movement. And to me, that's the black swan of the whatever future events lie in wait. I don't think it's necessarily bad or good. It's always going to be something one least expects. And one interesting thing to me is that, nowadays you have a lot of women who, they want everything in a way. They want everything, but in a way they're creating exactly what they had before, but just everywhere. So there's this whole thing about barefoot in the kitchen, wanting to go out, make your own money. A lot of women that I meet in the workplace bring, what's the word I'm looking for? Bring values from the home into the workplace. So yin and yang, let's say the home is the yin, the feminine energy, and the external wilderness is the yang and the male energy. Men were in the external because they were forced into the external, and they in a way dominated that environment because they had to. They didn't dominate everything, but they formed groups, they hunted, they did what they could to survive and to hopefully impress some group of women to get into some cave somewhere. In the modern world, what you have is this push, this shift where women don't want to just rule and decide who's in the cave. They want to rule and decide fucking everything, right? So they go out of the cave, but in a weird way, bring the cave with them. It's almost like, you can bring the man out of the jungle, but you can't bring the jungle out of the man. They're bringing the same values that apply in the home with a matriarchal power structure. They're bringing that into the workplace. They're bringing it into the external wilderness outside of the cave, and sort of forcing men to see the light, in quotations, about how this is the way that one should do things. I, to be honest, think that's the mistake. I think that's where the shift loses balance, and there's a black swan waiting to happen. And when I say black swan, I mean an unforeseen event, something we haven't foreseen at all. If you read that book, otherwise you can Google it, what it means. But the black swan event being provoked by the fact that, you see, men were never the enemy in that situation. So you can completely take men out of the equation and you will still have the wilderness. The wilderness doesn't care about your rights, or if you're matriarchal or patriarchal or anything. It is just a force to be reckoned with, and to what waits to be seen is if these values of the home are going to hold water outside of the cave in the wilderness. And I feel that's what's happening now. You have these like political values, feminine values, like we should all be equal and we should all love each other. Like, remove the hierarchy, remove the patriarchy, remove everything. Let's bring the home values everywhere. You're bringing that out into open, like, political discussions with other countries which don't give a shit about these values. And the question is, are you going to be able to compete in the wilderness now, where you don't have your walls of your cave to make this sort of you're in or you're out kind of thing? I hope you can understand what I'm saying. It's kind of difficult. It's very abstract in my head, but basically, it seems to me that I think women always thought that men were their oppressors, and they didn't understand that men are surviving in a very difficult environment. That in some ways women oppress men just as much as we do to them, all depending on which environment one is in. And now that little sister wants to come out and play in the treehouse of Big Brother, the question is, is it what you really want? And what's funny is that, is it just going to end up being another big barefoot in the kitchen like world? Because a lot of young girls nowadays have like taken up knitting, which is the weirdest thing to me. There's been this huge, massive push for feminism and all this anger, and you're oppressing us, and you just expect us to sew and stay at home and cook and I don't know what. And then you're sitting on the train like droves of young women on their way to work or school or whatever, and they're knitting. It's like, what the fuck am I looking at here? Because it's just so strange to me, because it's like you had the chance to leave that behind and you just took it with you. And all that tells me is it's way more ingrained in you than it is anything to do with that being put onto you. It must be something inside of you, the desire to do things in a certain way, to have a certain rhythm of life, to have a certain... So in other words, you're bringing the cave with you. And, I don't know how many times you're going to end up in the kitchen before you start understanding that you're the one bringing the kitchen with you. It ain't us putting you in the kitchen, because it's just in so many different ways. I see that happening. So what is the future anyways? What could the alternative be here? Well, I would hope that at some point we would start like learning something from each other, and maybe sort of other parts of the world and philosophies have some clues to how we deal with this. Like you have the these Tao and Buddhist philosophies and religions, which are far more focused on the balance between feminine and masculine, and how one respects each other, and how you cannot have one without the other. That could help a lot to sort of coexistence between us. And so societies, for example, more Southern and Middle Eastern societies, where they separate men and women more, so that one doesn't feel like one cannot express the natural behaviors that one has, because it's somehow insulting or threatening the other sex. I don't necessarily think that we always have the right path just because we are scientific-based society. Therefore, somehow we must know automatically what's the best way to do things. I really think we don't in a lot of ways. There's a lot to learn. It could also be interesting to see within the next, I would say, 50 years, physically and emotionally, and what happens. Because in theory, I kind of understand or I kind of accept the reality that what one can imagine can come into passing, and therefore it technically should be possible for women to, like, I think it could be possible for women to be bigger, stronger, smarter, more dominant, everything than men. In theory, like an Amazon society, maybe that's something looming in the future. I don't know. Anything's possible. So with this train of thought, I'm just exploring what I'm seeing, and I'm trying to match it up against what possible outcomes of that could be, and use that to somehow predict a trajectory for myself within my life about how I should behave, what my role is as a man, as a boyfriend, as a father, whatever that comes in the workplace. Everything is changing, so it's very hard to find your place as a man nowadays sometimes. I would say to men, though, out there, especially, I know for a fact, and this really fits with the out in the cold thing, there's a lot of guys that are out in the cold. There's a lot of guys which feel rejected, ignored. They're constantly told they're the beast, but they feel utter loneliness and pain all the time. And there's something so unfair in my mind that you're on top of that loneliness. You are just shaming these people for being, for trying somehow to survive. I would say to these guys, I have a feeling, or I have a theory and a feeling that this has some truth to it. Nature made it that way, that women are extremely good to create social structures and therefore create closed circles that one can be a part of or not, i.e. the cave. But on the other hand, we men are made to grow stronger through resistance and through hardship. Even going down to the semen that impregnates a female egg. It's a striving to survive. They're made to survive in this acidic, hostile environment, and I almost guarantee it to all you guys out there, in a way, and this is what women don't understand, bringing the kitchen to the wilderness. With men, the worse it is for you, the better you will become. Women always complain about things being difficult for them. Why don't you hear guys complaining about that as much? Because something inside of us knows the more difficult it is, the stronger you will be, the better you will become if you make it. It's just that fine line. Either you make it or you don't. But if you don't give up and you do make it over the horizon, the worse it is, the stronger you will come out on the other side. So you have to just hold on. That's how I would say to all those guys. I know there's a lot of fucking guys in pain out there. I know it, guaranteed. I'm in pain myself a lot of the time. And there's very little solace in that, but you're made to handle it. That's all I can say. The way your mind works, the way when we can grasp onto certain fantasies or hopes and let that guide our way, the way our bodies are made to be able to burn the light in both ends, burn the candle in both ends, and somehow keep it going for a long amount of time. We're tough, we're focused, we're strong, we can handle that. But during the time that it's happening, we're broken creatures. And all these young guys, these Columbine shooter young guys in America, who go bananas and kill a bunch of people and all that. These are broken men. And all I would say to them if I had a chance is that when you pull that trigger and you do that, you lost, not because something was wrong with you or, it was meant to happen that way. You lost because you kind of did exactly what these cave dwellers want you to do, is to break and solidify their theory that you're worthless. Just never do that. No matter what the hell they do to you or say to you or deny you of or put you in the cold or whatever like that, keep your head high, be proud, fucking keep on going, keep on trucking, and one day you will have, you will be able to reap your strength in one way or another on the planet. And there's lots of guys that prove that. There's all these dudes, Elon Musk and Trump and all these guys that people hate on big times. I'm not saying these guys are, model citizens or, perfect human beings. But look at the fucking strength those dudes have coming through. Everybody hates Trump. And the guy still fucking managed to get up there and create a following. Elon Musk, guy has, massive Asperger's or something. I mean, the guy has a lot, all these things that were supposed to be, people going around saying, I'm a victim, I have all these different diagnoses. This guy's turned it to his advantage. I mean, these are the people you need to look at and realize what strength looks like when you come out the other side of that pain tunnel, which unfortunately is the destiny of being a man. Suck it up and go out there and fucking claim it, claim it one way or another. Well, that's another episode for me. Hope I didn't miss out on anything, but thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time around. Bye.